The Paul Leslie Hour, helping people tell their stories. And now, your host, Paul Leslie.
Hey, it's me. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a landmark episode of the Paul Leslie Hour. It's a great honor to be talking with one of the greatest American musicians and songwriters, a legendary singer, songwriter, synonymous with peace, love, and happiness. Felix Cavaliere is a founding member of the Young Rascals, which of course became known as the Rascals. The songs are immortal. All of you know these songs. Good Lovin', I've Been Lonely Too Long, How Can I Be Sure, A Girl Like You, People Got to Be Free, and some of my favorites, A Beautiful Morning and Groovin'. Felix Cavaliere is an inductee of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Vocal Group Hall of Fame, and the Grammy Hall of Fame. A great performer, you can witness him in concert Thursday, January 9th, 8 o'clock p.m. at Center Stage in Atlanta, Georgia, and our friends down in Florida, Friday, January 10th at 7 o'clock p.m. at the Southwest Florida Event Center in Bonita Springs, Florida. You can check out more dates at FelixCavalieremusic.com. Felix, sir, thank you so much for being here. I'm glad you're here.
Well, thank you, Paul. I appreciate that.
It's an honor to be talking to you. I was born in the 80s, but I grew up with this music. I love it.
Oh, great. That's cool. Yeah, well, fortunately, that era of music has kind of lasted. And, I'm happy to say that's why I'm still out there working, yes.
There's a lot of songs today. It seems like they kind of have a bit of a short shelf life. Why do you think it is that these songs have endured?
Well, as I say, when you come back to the people who are our peers in that era, you got the Beatles, you got the Stones, you got the Kinks, you got the Beach Boys, you've got, the talent level was so high, the songs were so well written and so well done that they're all are just experiencing a long kind of lasting kind of life. Whereas after that, it really changed, and it changed right after Woodstock. It became a business, instead of an art form. Although it's still an art form, there's still a lot of very talented people out there, John Legend, et cetera, et cetera. But it became a business, stamp out the hits, and that's what we have now.
As I mentioned, you're going to be taking the stage here in Atlanta, Georgia, tomorrow. What does it feel like, from your perspective, to take the stage, and there you are, and the crowd, they just can't wait to hear, and they can't wait to see you? What's that like for you?
Oh, it's great. I mean, it's a wonderful feeling that, you can't really describe other than, you go into a room or you go into a place where everybody, just telling you, I love you, I love you, I love you. That's what it feels like. It's great. And, it's really nice to be able to entertain them and to, kind of get that spirit of the music in the whole room. It's a wonderful feeling. And it happens, wherever we go. Happens like, for example, in Japan. It's really amazing in Japan. They're so happy that you went and took the time to go over there and, they give that back to you. It's a great feeling.
So what's it like when you're in a place like Japan and someone who, there they are, they live on the other side of the world from the USA, and they want to shake your hand. They want an autograph. They want to take a picture with you.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I say, I mean, it's awfully nice to be received with joy and love, and that's exactly what it feels like. Especially in our world today, we've got kind of everybody's kind of like on edge. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of things going on, to say the least. And so when you have a little piece of that's joyful, it's a wonderful kind of takeoff from what's going on in the rest of the planet.
Yeah. A lot of the listeners out there, they're aware that you're from New Jersey.
No, I'm from New York. That's the other two guys.
You caught me.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, being that you're from New York,
right?
What effect do you think that has had on you?
Well, I mean, that's a very good question because, just in the very beginning of my so-called musical life, I was exposed to the very beginning of rock and roll. When Alan Freed came from Cleveland to New York, brought rock and roll, I was there. So I heard what was popular music or rock and roll music from the very, very first time it was played in America. So I grew up in the place where that was being, broadcast. So I heard everything. I heard everybody from Fats Domino to Jerry Lee Lewis to Chuck Berry to the Penguins, the Drifters. I had all of that going into my subconscious.
And being that you're of Italian descent, did that have an influence at all on your music?
Well, I can't say it really had an influence on my music. No, I think it, had an influence other than the fact that, I was able to hear, I started off classically and I was able to hear a lot of Italian composers, although, basically they were just opera and classical people. But I don't think that had anything to do with the music. The environment had a lot to do with the music.
I see. As I mentioned, there were a lot of honors that you've had, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Vocal Group Hall of Fame. On this show, I love talking to songwriters. We wouldn't have songs.
You also left out the Songwriter Hall of Fame. That's one of the best ones that I ever got. I'll tell you, that was really important. It's a little known organization because they don't have a facility, a museum or anything like that. But it's really a unique group of people that I'm real proud of being. But you're right, the songs make the industry really go around. Although today there's a substitution. It's basically called production. You could take a song and produce it and produce a hit, but it's like you said earlier, is that song going to last the test of time? I'll tell you a great story. We have these organizations that, I don't know if you guys know, ASCAP and BMI, and these are societies that help us as songwriters and publishers. Help us meaning, like, in other words, if someone does my song on television, we get paid. We meaning the writers and the publishers. Well, I used to go to meetings all the time in New York when I was living there. And there was this one guy who was always walking around with a smile. So one day I said, why is this guy always smiling? Why is he so freaking happy? He wrote Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So every year he made a fortune. Every single year, because that song was so, played, he got money. So songwriting really is really used to be the crux of our business. Now production is as important in the marketplace.
Do you think that songwriters get the respect that they deserve?
Not really, no. But, I mean, for example, you take two of the greatest that ever lived, Elton John and Bernie Taupin. Now, Bernie Taupin does the lyrics, Elton John does the music. How many people know Bernie's name? You know what I'm saying? And he was there for almost every one of his major hits. And he's brilliant. But you don't know him because you got that spotlight on you when you're Elton John, So it's a behind the scenes thing. And it's the way it is.
You live in Nashville, which is a town with so many great songwriters who live there. And it just makes me wonder, what does Felix Cavaliere think of country music?
Well, country music is really pop music now. I mean, it's not really country music. Like when I first came down here, which was a long time ago, on tour, country music was like Hank Williams, and people like Waylon Jennings, and even more country than that, George Strait. It's not really that anymore. It's like what the Eagles used to do in the 70s. It's pop music. So I like it. I miss a lot of the rhythmic content because I happen to like R&B a little better. But, it's a different way of kind of presenting your subject matter. And their subject matters are a lot different than, a lot of the pop songs. I mean, they talk about different things. They're more homey. They're more personal when it comes to outdoors and, drinking and bars, they have a different way of exploring, but it's all changed now, come to the middle, I think.
Interesting. Going back to the Songwriters Hall of Fame, which you are an inductee of, and you, along with the greatest songwriters who ever lived, you are an inductee, but also Bob Dylan, Billy Joel, Joni Mitchell.
Absolutely.
Who do you think the best songwriters around?
Great. It's a great question, man. What era are you talking about? Because we go back, Cole Porter, and these guys, Irving Berlin, man, Rodgers and Hammerstein. But in the modern day, I'll tell you what, I don't think anybody touches Bob Dylan. Yeah. Bob Dylan he's the man. He's like absolutely unbelievable human being to bring that talent to our planet, let me tell you.
Well spoken. One of the people that I wanted to touch on a little bit that you worked with, the great Billy Joel.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about being around him and working with him.
Well, Billy's a guy who has not changed from when, I first met him as a young guy in Long Island. He's kept his so-called balance, if you want to call it, as to who he is and where he's from and his roots. And I really respect him for that, because it's very easy to fly away into oblivion, you know what I'm saying? And he has never done that. And I as I say, he's breaking all records. He's actually, I think he's on his 60th show selling out Madison Square Garden, which is ridiculously unbelievable. But, he's a good guy. Extremely talented man, very talented. And piano player, songwriter, singer. I think he's a great human being.
I'm glad to hear that.
Oh, yeah.
There's all these songs that people think of when they think of you and when they think about the old Rascals records. When you're performing, is there a certain song that you've noticed it gets them every time?
Well, yeah, of course, there's a few of those. I would say that the one that gets them every time up on their feet is Good Lovin'. The one that gets them every time in their heart is Beautiful Morning. Sometimes How Can I Be Sure? And we get a good reaction from people Gotta Be Free lately because of all the turmoil that's around. Yeah.
It wasn't that long ago. I was down in Key West, and there was a guy on the street, and he was singing beautifully, a street singer, and he did A Beautiful Morning, and then he segued it into Oh, What a Beautiful Morning. And man,
great.
I had to put
a great idea, yeah.
It was so cool. And it just makes me wonder, you have to have heard musicians who recorded your work or you performed. Who do you think really, really nailed the song that you wrote?
Well, Pat Benatar certainly did with You Better Run. She did a good job with that one. Yeah. And we've had a lot. We've had people like do How Can I Be Sure, that they did, there was a country version of that was really good. It's pretty good, to have anybody do your song, because they interpret it in a different way. But as far as really nailed it, that's Pat Benatar, I think.
What's the biggest compliment you've ever gotten?
Well, actually, it's not really in the form of a compliment, but I had this experience with this guy who, as a matter of fact, I ran into him again in Florida, and he approached me and he said, "Can I talk to you?" And I said, "Yeah, man. What is it?" He says, "First of all, I want to give you these. These are my dog tags." I said, "What do you mean, man?" He says, "Man," he says, "you saved my life." I said, "Well, what are you talking about, man?" He said he was part of this. His name was Dyer, I think Thomas Dyer. He was part of this battalion that goes on the ships in Vietnam, on the boats, to pick up the wounded. They get on the Mekong, they get on the Delta, and they go up and they pick up, after a battle, they pick up people that are hurt, bring them back in some cases. He said this one particular trip, I heard you guys were going to be on this show, which is called Hullabaloo, which is a long time ago. And I said, okay, I'm going to take the next boat. Well, that boat didn't make it. That boat was attacked and blown up. So, in essence, he wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the Rascals. Those are the kind of things that really hit you. You know what I mean? Like, there's one thing to say, I think you're great, and there's another thing to say, hey, man, thank you for saving my life. Really interesting.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yep.
What would you say you're the most proud of?
Well, in the music business or, in real life, I'd have to say my kids, my family, and the fact that, I've kept a pretty straight ship all these years, as far as in the music business, I'm most proud, like, as I say, when, people react to the music, with, how should I say, respect and love. If you really feel something down in your heart and you project that to an audience and the audience gets it, that's a real treat.
Is there anything coming up in the near future other than these touring dates?
Well, yeah, there's a few things. Basically, I did my first symphony a year ago with my music, and that was a treat. I'm looking forward to doing some more of those. I've also got a book coming out that I'm hoping to get out this first quarter of this year, 2020, and I've got some new music coming out too. I came up with an idea to include a CD with the book that I'm kind of excited about. So it's a little different in that what I did is I took 6 songs that influenced me, re-recorded them, and wrote 6 songs to kind of show the influence. Just an interesting idea that keep working, man. That's the thing. Just keep creating and keep doing. That's really what I enjoy.
And I'm sure all the listeners out there, if they want to follow what you're doing, it's FelixCavalieremusic.com, Cavaliere.
Correct.
I always like to give the guest the stage at the end of the interview.
Uh-huh.
We never know who's listening.
Yeah.
Old, young. I would give this as your opportunity to address the audience. What would you say to anyone who's tuned in?
Well, I say, man, first of all, thank you for tuning in and thank you for paying attention to Mr. Paul here, because I was able to kind of say hello and thank you to our audience for all these years of really kind of like supporting my music and, the kind of messages, if want of a better word, that we're trying to get across, because it's important to me right now as a father and as a grandfather for us to have peace on earth. So any way I can contribute to that, I would like to put that out there.
Beautiful.
All right, my man.
Well, Mr. Felix, thank you so much.
Hey, Paul, I hope I see you when you get a chance.
Yes, sir.
If you're around Atlanta, please let me know you're there.
Oh, yeah. I'll be there tomorrow.
Okay, well, we'll make sure. And please go through, Melissa, and we'll make sure that we see you backstage or whatever's convenient.
Oh, that's awesome.
Please do. Please do.
You made my night.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I'll see you tomorrow night.
All right. Will do.
Yes,
my honor.
Take
Good
care.
night. Bye-bye.
Boop, bop, deep bop, a doodly, keep bop, doodly, shop, bop, a ding a daka. Ooh, no, I just get up, like a ponton, cook it to be, a zilla baka, fucking donk, pont, good look on the good loop, ba, boodly, boom. Goodbye.